Boy, I'm still reeling from everything that we just heard. Um, there's a place that wants to cry. Uh, a place that wants to pray, you know. Um, but I feel like well, it's hard to just step into it. Certainly if anybody's having trouble accepting that what they're talking about is real, I can speak for it from my personal relationship with a lot of people. A lot of my close friends in life have been Native Americans who were older than me, who grew up in boarding schools. And hearing Kevin talk, it's like it's the beginning of the possibility that the real story could be told one day. And on that level, it's exciting. I've been inspired and excited by all kinds of things that I've been hearing here, more than my little brain can sort of wrap itself around or contain. From all different angles, where we're hearing people talk about you just have to bear with me while I find my way into what it is that I feel compelled to say, because I've never formulated it, right? It's just happening now. There's worlds overlapped on this world, even in the human world. So there's a world that was here before our people came here. There's all these worlds where there's things going on that aren't necessarily, the people who inhabit those worlds aren't necessarily represented here, in a sense. Even the resistance and the efforts that people in all their different areas of expertise that we're hearing about here, which is wonderful stuff, that we're coming to that place where it's all coming to the surface and we're starting to piece it together. We're even starting to hear science and religion start to say the same thing. Which for me, as long as they're shouting at each other from opposite sides of the room, I know we're not getting anywhere yet, but it's starting to all kind of converge in our understanding. And I feel compelled to somehow bring forward the idea that, for example, and I'm sure it's true on all the other continents as well, in the indigenous cultures, there are people and groups of people and traditional ways and understandings that have kept themselves hidden from your view out of necessity, because that's the only way that they could end up still being here. Yet what I'm seeing is a direction that we're going towards, where it could one day become safe for them to align themselves with the rest of what's happening. For example, in my own experience, I was initiated into a secret society that, if you go into anthropology, they'll tell you that it ceased to exist 500 years ago. And it didn't. But it got from its own guidance system the idea that it would have to disappear from view, and disappear from view from its own people, in order to preserve itself, so that it would be available as a resource in the future. And so it literally disappeared from its own people even, and went underground and disappeared. And that's often been the case in our history in all kinds of cultures. Amongst the dervish peoples, when the schools were smashed by the new conqueror, those schools split in three. One migrated with the old way intact, one went underground in the existing location, and the other one changed its shape and form to become the conqueror and go inside it and work from within it. But then those three would get split in three again. And so there's all these things that are not in the view of the mainstream world or population. And to try and bring forward the question, what is it about us that necessitates things staying out of our view? Or what do we have to do to grow to the place where we become trustworthy enough for all of the resources, which is all the knowledge and wisdom of all those centuries, to be able to come forward and work together as one thing and find a common language where we can understand each other and begin to piece it all together, because we need all the help that we can get. And so the word that keeps ringing around in my mind is sovereignty. Sovereignty of the mind, sovereignty of the heart, the spirit, and looking at all the ways, there's been all this wonderful information about discoveries that are being made, all the efforts that are being made to go in the direction on all fronts of reclaiming our sovereignty economically, on all different levels. Yet somehow, the way it comes to me that, and again, I'm a young man, I can't stand here and tell you what's true, right? So anything I say is basically a rumor. And rumors you can take or leave. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes. All I'm capable of is rumors. And then you investigate yourself, and maybe it becomes true for you too, or not. And that part's not up to me. But somehow we have to be able to go back into our everyday world and look at, where did that sovereignty go? How did we end up relinquishing it? How do we reclaim it? And look at all the ways that it's been undermined and taken away, and subtle ways. It's become really clear to me, listening to all these different people talk and share their perception, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, what they're learning in these different fields that they're working in. I might just have to rant and rave to find it, because it's all fragments that are pieces of everything that I've ingested here. But I feel like I have something to offer from that. For lack of a better word, the entity or entities that have, in a sense, stolen our freedom and our life. We're hearing about, they're stealing our kids, they're stealing our money, they're stealing our health. It's just disappearing on all fronts. Our cemeteries are full of people who made honorable choices from the best of their understanding to spill their blood on behalf of freedom, and yet it seems like we have less than we ever did on some levels. And we are the current carriers of all that effort and sacrifice to the future. And so the choices that we make in the smallest way contribute to what it is that we have to hand on. How do we come from a place that the choices I make today, could I stand by those choices and face my great-grandchildren and say, I can stand by that. That was on your behalf that I went in that direction, or would I be ashamed to face them based on what I do with my life here and now? And I can see through a lot of the things that I've been blessed to witness in my life, through being adopted into other cultures, ways in which we've been stripped of the teaching of life itself, because more and more that gets taken away. You know, I didn't grow up in my home with my family and my parents. I went off to school where some other character was in charge of what went into my mind. I never witnessed a birth, so I had no idea where I came from. When people died, they were just whisked away, and so I didn't know what that was either. All the things of life itself that would grow us up have been taken away. And somehow, and I'm just using the birth-death thing as one example, but it's like on all fronts, we have to grab hold of it again and bring it home. Because now we have children growing up who haven't a clue what birth is or death is, and yet, and the older people here might know more about this than me, because it's not that long ago before those things happened in the home. If I don't know where I came from and I don't know where I'm going, how can I possibly make sense out of what happens in between? The respect isn't there. The awe, the reverence for what life itself is. I've had 4 of my children were born at home, in home births. And the other children who were around at that time got to be present to that. 2 of those didn't turn out so well, and ended up being, they were actually born at about 110 miles an hour in the back of my car. But the other 3 were born at home quite successfully. 2, it didn't go so well. And they died later on. And so those deaths were brought into my home as well. And if I wasn't bullheaded enough to take that on, just figuring that that's a natural process of life, if I bring that home into my home, I'm going to learn something. Which meant I had to go against the grain of everything that was in front of me to do that. Bring the body home and just take care of it myself, according to whatever my guidance of the moment was. But to go back a couple of generations, and that was the norm. And so passed away, it was winter, the ground's too hard, you stick her in the porch till spring. And I know people who talk about they go out and poke at so-and-so who's frozen in the porch, but that was life. Those things teach us things, all the rites of passage, and all that's been handed over to somebody else. We have a lot of work to do if we're going to reclaim all that. And we have to go back into our lives and you do according to your own guidance. If anything, would hope to inspire, don't follow my guidance, I can't recommend that anybody live my life. Whatever it is for you, go with it. Because it seems to me that we're on an accelerating curve that's totally exciting on one level. There's hope that if I can stay healthy enough and live long enough, I could see a different world than the one that I've lived most of my life in. Or if not, I could at least see my children walk into that world where it isn't like it is now, where everything that goes on between me and you, there's a third party in the middle with a gun who's dictating how it goes. Just kind of the bottom line. It's possible that we could have that kind of world. I don't know if people are familiar with the world of prophecy. There's all kinds of exciting stuff about where we're going. The Mayan stuff, is that familiar to anybody here? Yeah. Jose Argeli's, some of that stuff, the 2012, you know. The idea that by 2012, in 1 week, 7 24-hour cycles, more evolution will take place for us than the distance between the discovery of fire and the first car. It's an accelerating curve that's all going somewhere. And as we rise into that, more and more stuff is surfacing and more and more stuff is converging. And somewhere humility has to come into that picture. 'Cause sometimes the way I hear myself and our people talk, it's as if we're discovering something, and yet a lot of the things that we're talking about have been known all along by other peoples, the same way that we claim to have discovered North America. You know, it's a very presumptuous, arrogant sort of behavior that we do well to shed. You know, the Hopi call it Koyaanisqatsi. You know, this last hearing from Kevin and the other fellow that was here, you know, Koyaanisqatsi means life out of balance, or a strong indication that another way of life should be chosen. And that's their description of this time that we're in. You know, that's very polite. A strong indication that another way of life should be chosen. So I believe that it's all on behalf of something, but that our biggest challenge is going to be what we have on the inside to match it with. Because it's potentially going to be more and more challenging, and more will be required of us to go forward with it all, to honor all of the effort that went behind us, do our part to deliver it to the future in an honorable way, and be willing to stand by that. And if we don't, then we let down everything that went before us to get this far.